teaching through storytelling. Law is the perfect social science, it seems to me, because we not only have technical material in statutes, in the law reports, in the legal treatises, we also have law reports which tell us exactly what happened, exactly what the actors did to one another. The judges tell us not only their decision, they not only give their judgment, they give all their reasons for that. They tell you about which of the earlier rules they're following, which of the earlier rules they're choosing not to follow, and why, and how all that works technically. So you have a huge amount of material in there. One of the great difficulties of teaching law is trying to educate the students not just as the substantive law, but also in terms of their skills as to how they winnow wheat from chaff in all that, what it is they're supposed to know, what it is you want them to do with that. It's also quite difficult to get them to treat cases as literature, which surprises me, because they're fascinating. And one tries to teach, of course, by picking the most interesting cases. You have to pick the leading cases in the common law system, the ones that are the law, in a very Judge Dredd sense. But you also want to try and pick the ones that tell the best story. And so I find that teaching through storytelling is a great way of humanising what otherwise can be a very technical subject, particularly when you're teaching it to people who are generally between the ages of 18 and 21, that you want to try and bring all that to life. Because what we always want to do is to get them beyond just the technical material, so they can stand back and evaluate that technical material. Who's winning and who's losing at the crudest level? What's the effect of that? How do women fare in this versus men? So one area, for example, is how do you acquire rights in the home? Which is absolutely ripe for bringing to life, because all the cases discuss people's relationships imploding, what happens when one of them's become ill or lost work. I mean, they're all soap operas, or they're all fantastic novels, and all this stuff packed together. And because the judges talk about the rules they want to follow and not follow, you're getting a sense also of where are we now in the 21st century versus where cases were at the end of the 19th. And fascinatingly, seeing the judges that insist we still follow some 19th century rules in some cases. So storytelling and encouraging them to see these things as literature and to work out who the human beings are, I think helps enormously. One of my most successful undergraduate dissertation students was one where she wanted a way of getting into all this complex law. And after she and I talking a lot about what was it that interested her about doing a dissertation in this area, hit upon the idea that she was actually interested in the women involved. And she personally was a single mother. And so this chimed in with her personally, but I found it's something that chimes in with a lot of students. And I always then end up in the situation as a man of talking to women about what it means to be a woman, and then they start asking you questions about, so what does it mean to be a woman in this area? What on earth do I know? But you encourage them towards the appropriate literature and so on and so forth. And so discussing who the women were in all the leading cases, and indeed some of the subsidiary cases that were indicating the younger judges might go in a different direction, we were able to ask in Lloyds Bank and Rossett, who was Mrs. Rossett? Why did the leading judge say, well, that's the sort of thing we'd expect a wife to do, and therefore we can ignore her contribution? Versus, who was Mrs. Cook, who was Miss Cox in a later case? And humanising and storytelling, I think, makes more vivid why are these women being treated differently? Why do we come different results? And therefore, who are the judges doing that, and what do we get to know about them? I think storytelling is a great way of, encouraging students to understand what's going on, particularly when you want them to critically evaluate, to use that expression, what's going on in the law, and not just to repeat what the rules are. I think to humanise and bring that to life is a really useful technique.